My name's Grant Dodson. I'm the chairperson of the New Zealand Game Animal Council. I have beside me Karina Jordan, who's our CEO, and Alison Gordon, barrister, who's assisting us. Online, we should have Dr. Kaylin Pinney, Gary Ottman, who you can see there, Professor Graham Nugent, and Professor Jeff Kerr, all who have provided supporting information for this. So what I would say is the Game Animal Council is a statutory organisation. We were established in 2013, and it is our act that's been considered for amendment by this committee. So the key point here is that the Game Animal Council Act is designed to create a modern conservation and a balanced approach to incorporate the principles of sustainable use of game animals whilst giving high regard to conservation outcomes. And I know that you've heard from many people on these submissions that New Zealand has a deer problem and that deer are unmanaged. So to quantify that, New Zealand does not have a deer problem. In areas it has a deer management problem. And this is exactly what the herd of special interest is trying to address. You've also heard from many speakers that recreational hunters will not fully control deer. And this is also not the intention of a herd of special interest. The herd of special interest is underpinned by a management plan that recreational hunting is only part of the management techniques. But what the herd of special interest does is it captures those values and uses those values to deliver the management plan. And in the case of Whirl and Wapiti, at virtually no cost to the Crown. So the Game Animal Council is a collaborative organisation. We're a statutory body, so we believe we have acted with integrity throughout this process. We have worked as government has intended us and as our Act has intended us to get towards this point of delivering the herds of special interest, which we have done. It's before the Minister, and the proposals are being addressed. There is an issue which this amendment attempts to address, which is ultimately a conflict between some very old conservation legislation, which I would argue has never been achieved in terms of eradication, and aims to find a more balanced approach where we can see the values of those animals, but most importantly, preserve the ecological values of our most treasured areas and national parks. So you have this submission before us. We want to make sure we want to make sure you've got plenty of time for questions, but that's enough for me. I'll pass it over to Karina.
I've just got a few statements and I wanted to turn my mind to overriding considerations, so I'll finish on that and then we'll pause for questions. But just to introduce, the Game Animal Council represents more than 100,000 New Zealanders who are engaged in hunting across New Zealand. Under various pieces of legislation, deer, chamois, and valued introduced species are considered wild animals, game animals, or described as valued introduced species. And that recognises the value these animals have to many New Zealanders, including for recreational and commercial opportunities, and as an important source of food. So hunting is a strong part of who we are as a country. It's deeply embedded in our history, and it continues to be a pivotal part of the lifestyle of more than 100,000 New Zealanders, including mana whenua. A lot of our remote socioeconomic communities rely on the opportunity to go and harvest free-range organic wild food from our forests to feed their whānau and their communities. Hunting restores our connections with our natural environment and installs a strong sense of conservation and preservation. It supports physical health and well-being. It connects families, and it supports getting kids off devices, out into nature, learning practical skills and contributing back. I'm cognizant that some submitters are raising concerns in relation to the number of deer in New Zealand and the effects on our natural environment. We've been listening to the submissions and we're concerned around the lack of understanding around what HOSI is intended to do, how it's intended to be applied on the ground, and what this Amendment Act is intended to achieve, which has been supported obviously by the Minister for Hunting and Fishing and by Parliament. The GAC agrees that we are overall currently failing in game animal management in New Zealand. And this is why tools such as herds of special interest HOSI, which represent a legislative paradigm shift, are so urgently needed given our antiquated conservation legislation and frameworks. Simply put, we don't have a deer problem in New Zealand, but we definitely have a deer management problem. This is in no way derogating from the amazing work that the Department of Conservation does in relation to conservation across New Zealand. The reality is, though, is that DOC doesn't have the budget or the consistent focus due to its large mandate and competing priorities to effectively manage deer, tahr and chamois in New Zealand. This is why the hunting sector has stepped up. And this is why the government is proposing to support the HOSI framework and undertake this amendment so we can continue to do the amazing work we're currently doing in our national parks for all of New Zealanders. Just a couple of brief examples. Hunters play a crucial role in controlling game animal populations, harvesting more than 350,000 big game animals annually, including deer. This significantly exceeds the government pest control efforts. For one small example, and you'll hear later from the Fiordland Wapiti Foundation, Roy Sloan, since 2014, the Fiordland Wapiti Foundation has removed 30% of the total number of deer removed from the Fiordland National Park from within its 15% of the park. This averages 3.5 deer per square kilometre removed from Fiordland National Park, compared to 1.6 deer per square kilometre removed by Waro, and you would have heard a bit about Waro, and 0.3 deer per square kilometre removed from the national park, which is DOC-led. This clearly shows the effort of coordinated, managed, hunter-led management of our deer populations and achievement of conservation outcomes. We have many more examples, and I'm sure you'll ask me questions on these, so I'll go straight to the other part of what I want to talk to you is overriding considerations. Under existing conservation-focused legislation, game animals are frequently considered pests to be removed from public conservation land. The Conservation Legal Framework does acknowledge value introduced species appropriately. This is a reflection of how outdated our conservation law is, bearing in mind that the Game Animal Council Act came into being in 2013, so it wasn't envisioned or well incorporated into our conservation law frameworks. The problem is most acute in national parks. The ultimate goal for game animals within a national park is extermination, hence the Parliament's consideration of these changes to the Game Animal Council Act. Although the HOSI mechanism will result in smaller, better managed populations of game animals and in demonstrable benefits for conservation outcomes, and we can talk about that, it and the herd management plan may still struggle to prove consistency with the overriding considerations of natural state, which is pristine, without human impact, and excludes valued introduced species, and prioritise the extermination of these animals in these areas. We can provide more written information on this. I know we're short in time. We will send you through our speaking notes. But as we are submitted, Game Animal Council is seeking further amendments to the Game Animal Council Act to replace the consistent with wording with the less rigid wording must have regard to. This recognises the inconsistency within our conservation management framework and the challenges we've got with subservient pieces of legislation which link to overriding considerations constantly overriding the Game Animal Council Act and the Herds of Special Interest and its intent. I'll pause there for questions.
Brilliant. Thank you both. Look, we'll move first to Rachel Brooking, who's the first question.
Hello, all of you. Yeah, I'm interested in your comments about mana whenua and grant acknowledging from Dunedin as well. We had Edward Allison and with the New Zealand Conservation Authority the other day. So, and he was talking about how, you know, obviously most conservation land is within the Ngāi Tahu Takiwā. And he was making the comment that as part of their settlement, even though it was a mean question of me because he was there as the New Zealand Conservation Authority, but I was taking advantage of him being in the room with all of his experience with Kaitahu. And he was making the point that in their treaty settlements, part of what they've done is to get involved in all the different boards involved in conservation, but it seems that they won't be involved with the HOSI. So I was wondering if you could comment on that and if you think that that's something that could be rectified.
I don't believe that that's correct. That the Game Animal Council has as a statutory body has a requirement to consult with everyone on these matters.
But Ngāi Tahu in particular?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, Ngāi Tahu are the lead area there. So under the HOSI process, DOC has primary responsibility for that consultation, but the Game Animal Council is actively trying to assist and participate as well as has the foundations. So yeah, there's absolutely no intent In fact, there's a desire to fully involve iwi in these processes.
And he was in no way being rude about these processes at all. It was just if there was a statutory position there and if there.
Oh,
that statutory role
the
was-
position is they're involved. It's written in the Act.
Is it for iwi though, or is it in Ngāi Tahu specific?
Well, the Game Animal Council Act is, but that enables HOSI can be applied across the country, but it's specifically
Yeah.
place. It's a place and time context. So if it's the South Island, it's Ngāi Tahu.
Okay,
I,
just one last question, Rachel.
so is that a place on the board or it's consultation?
It's consultation.
Yeah, okay, that's.
Thank you.
That's the difference.
We'll move to Cameron Luxton now.
Thank you, Chair. Nice to have the GAC here talking about this act being your remit. So the GAC will have oversight of these management plans. I was hoping, the committee's heard a few submitters talking about, sort of giving the impression that hunter-led management is Elmer Fudd stomping around in the bush, picking off the odd deer. It's not, I think it's clear from your submission that that's not what's intended. It's hunter collaboration, coordinated and resourced, and members of this House have heard about the need for resourcing biodiversity in New Zealand. Can you talk a bit more from what the GAC will be looking for in a management plan that dispels some of these myths about certain Looney Tune characters?
Look, if I can just start. So I mean, the basis of the management plan is firstly measurement. You need to understand the population and you need to understand its impacts in terms of browse on Indigenous biodiversity. You then take those measures and you use those as management tools. Now, if that involves getting numbers down, which it typically does, then there's a range of tools to do that. Recreational hunting is one of them. And we all know that we can fly around with helicopters with thermal imagery and get things pretty quickly if we need to. That's all part of it. There's multiple tools to be used within that. This is not simply about recreational hunting. It's actually about implementing a management plan.
And can you talk about the resourcing of that plan?
So in the case of the Fuel and Wapiti Foundation, the hunters are supplying or ultimately funding that through firstly the contributions that people make voluntarily through the balloting system, but also the revenue that's generated from the sale of animals that are removed from that area. And I'm sure many of you have enjoyed a Wapiti burger at Burger Fuel recently, which I have done as well. So that's an example of it.
Thank you very much. We'll move to Scott Willis now.
So
Oh, just a supplement.
Oh, okay. Yep, go, Lan.
Sorry, just about the resource. So you're saying that basically how this would be paid for is self-funded from the hunters.
correct.
And I guess I'm just trying to understand that sort of at scale, because you're sort of saying that this, like mentioning helicopters, for example, that's very expensive.
Yep.
And we've heard a lot about the realities, particularly like in this cost of living situation where hunters are increasingly crunched for like transport costs and all the whatnot to actually get out there. There's no doubt very serious, heartfelt intention to like be going out there and killing animals and doing the right thing and helping conservation. What are the realities
So
of this?
well, so what I would say is that the Fuel and Wapiti Foundation publishes a set of annual accounts, what Roy's sitting behind me. So you can actually look at what is going on down there and has been going on down there for a number of years. But what I would say is hunters like myself we value these animals and our hunting and conservation so much, so we're actually prepared to put our wallets where our mouth is.
So what's a ballpark annual figure from those figures that you mentioned?
In terms of annual hunter spend per person, or
Yeah,
in
just
terms of the
give us
Wapiti
an idea.
Foundation's budget? Well, I think the average,
Budget maybe.
the average hunter is probably spending an order of about $8,000 a year in their sport. I think that's right, Karina.
It's a $300 million economy.
And what about the Wapiti Foundation?
The Wapiti Foundation, I don't have those numbers on top of my head, but Roy does. He's right behind me. So, and perhaps it's
Perhaps you'd
ask
like to
Roy.
come back on that in terms of the economics. Does that answer your question,
Yeah, that'd be
Lan?
great. To come back with the.
Yeah, to come back with the exact numbers in terms of how
Yes,
much per
absolutely.
That would be
hunter.
More than happy to do that. Good
Thank
question. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, now we'll move to Scott Willis for a question.
Thank you, and I don't consider myself Elmer Fudd. I try to be very quiet when I'm in the bush, and I think many hunters who are conservationists are. So I really appreciate you going into the amount that might be spent, but like Lan, I'm very keen to understand, because Game Animal Council's been in existence since 2013, and yet we have seen an incredible rise in numbers of deer, pigs, tahr, goats in our bush, and that hasn't gone down, it's gone up. Not only what is the cost of maintaining a HOSI, who's going to pay it? Where's the income going to come from? That's the first part
Okay,
of
so that's the question. Yes.
So firstly, the Game Animal Council hasn't been empowered to undertake game management in New Zealand. So that's the first point. Currently, game animal management in New Zealand is extermination, control, eradication through the Department of Conservation through their wild animal control plans. They've realised that's failing, so they're working more and more with hunters on the ground. The second part of that is that and our foundations will talk more to this, but what's happening is that we can harvest our game animals and we can bring them in through to our domestic food supply chains and then also onto the market, therefore offsetting the cost of conservation on the ground. As well as that, when you bring hunters together, you get free voluntary labour of a sort of effective labour force. They're able to go into the wild, survive in the wild, navigate their way through it, and undertake conservation activities with less risk of safety issues. And that movement is essentially growing. What HOSI does is it has not been implemented yet. And this is why we're saying we've got a game animal management issue in New Zealand. That's where we're failing, and this is why this tool is so important.
Yeah, Scott, ask us up on your primary, and then Rachel's got a sup as well.
Okay, so that sounds all very hopeful to me, and
It's working on the ground
it's well,
in Fiordland.
yeah, evidence would dispute that, but it seems to me that it is like hoping that we could actually manage our pine plantation, wilding pine situation with volunteer work, going cutting some firewood in the hills. This doesn't look as though there's a real structured plan. Doesn't seem as though it's been thought through. Do you think we needed to do more background and have a management plan?
No, hang on, can I answer this? Sorry. The part of HOSI, because we've been working through this, is development of a herd management plan. And that work is currently been underway. The development of a herd management plan, it's a statutory process. It's going to be a statutory plan. So it's a new tool or planning instrument that sits under the herd of special interest. This is going to put more constraints and requirements on these hunter-led management approaches than ever before. And this includes methods to monitor browse and report on ecological outcomes, as well as the hunter efforts to reduce the size of the deer population, for example, and deliver those multiple benefits for hunters and for conservation.
Lan,
So I agree, all of that would be fantastic information to have. But at this point, there's no funding to actually make that all happen, right? Like ecological monitoring.
This has been working.
is
This has been
massive.
working for 20 years.
What's been working?
The Fiordland Wapiti Foundation managing the Wapiti herd to low numbers for conservation and ecological outcomes in the central 175,000 hectares of New Zealand's Fiordland National Park. It has been happening for 20 years. What you're enabling is a continuation of what goes on with some enhancements. Scott, you may be right. There are areas of Fiordland that have too many deer. They are red deer and they are outside the Wapiti area. And that's areas that administration by DOC, and it's nothing more than a demonstration of how our current old and outdated Conservation Act in this respect is failing. This is an opportunity. to
Cameron
improve that.
Luxton has a sup on that.
The idea that funding can't increase or grow when we do new things seems to be the line of questioning we're in here. That there is already a pool of funding that we're going to tap into. Does this is creating herds of special interest and groups that can manage it, is that going to increase the pie? Are we going to get a change in the way we see conservation, the resourcing for it, and the economy around it?
I think so. And I think I don't want to draw a straight bow to Fish and Game, but we've seen an organisation that's had a long history in New Zealand, effectively managing sports fish and game birds in the interest of hunters and anglers. They're able to manage that at no cost to the ratepayer or the taxpayer, and they significantly contribute back to conservation. They've been one of New Zealand's largest freshwater advocates, and they spend something like $20 million on wetland conservation and restoration. What we know as hunters and as anglers is if you take care of the habitat, then that takes care of the animals, but you need to apply management approaches on top. And when you have initiatives like this, then you can essentially work to self-fund them through the interest groups that are engaging in these activities like hunters and anglers.
Thank you. I've just got a quick question because, you talk about the 100,000 hunters and obviously, they're going out and they're shooting the deer and then they're bringing that home to their families for the meat. And of course, that helps reduce cost of living and all of those things. I mean, and then I hear that there's a lot of hunters that donate to food banks as well and bring that meat back. I mean, how much of a drive is there to get out there as well to bring the meat and the food home for the family?
It's a massive movement across New Zealand, and what we're seeing is more hunters engaging in, once they've filled up their freezers, then they want to give back to their communities, and they also want to keep going out enjoying our natural environment. So they will go out and harvest animals, and they're looking for opportunities to move that meat through into social distribution food channels. For example, we've got a meeting this afternoon with the Salvation Army to talk about that, and GAC has developed a Hunt and Share app to support a system that it helps hunters go out, harvest meat and provide that through into our social distribution food channel to support New Zealanders.
So, I mean, that's amazing that they're, obviously being conservationists and, bringing the deer populations down, but then, of course, bringing food home for the family and contributing to our food banks and helping people across our communities.
We see this as an opportunity for community wellbeing and for hunters to give back to New Zealand.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Priyanka, yes, I will come to you.
Cool. Thank you. I have a question around the point that you've made at multiple bits of your submission, written and oral, which is the fact that you've said that the application for HOSIs intend to be compatible with the area's conservation management objectives, including ensuring sustainable regeneration of the area. Grant, you mentioned that that's what's happening in Fiordland as well. I think that's where the rub is for a number of people. Of course, that we've heard from submitters who want the focus to be on eradication completely. There are others who have said that that's not possible and this is the next best option that we have. But the Venn diagram that you have, I think the middle bit is potential to grow if people have confidence that you can actually do both, but we haven't seen the evidence of that so far. We've heard from submitters who
What's
said
your question, Priyanka?
that's not possible, and I want to know how that's possible. We've heard the numbers have to be really low, like 0, for forest regeneration to actually happen. What's your contrary view there, or what's your experience?
I'll start. We've been talking about the Fiordland Wapiti Foundation because they've been demonstrating this the longest, but we have initiatives across New Zealand that are also working well. So the Seeker Foundation and the Kawekas, not a national park, but still are doing amazing work. And they've found in those areas, and that research has been done, they're not quite published yet, but we can get it to you, that they're managing that deer population low enough to support regeneration of the forest through that area. They are the only ones undertaking deer management through that area.
So is there scientific evidence to figure out what the number should be in order to support regeneration?
Yes, there is. And if specifically Professor Graham Nugent and has done a lot of work on this. And look, the brief summary of it is that if you have deer at the carrying capacity of the environment, then they will be causing detrimental effects. If you have them at half the carrying capacity of the environment or potentially lower, then that enables regeneration and you achieve a win-win outcome for everybody. And that is what you can measure and target through applied management.
Look, thank you very much. We have met time today. We appreciate your very thorough submission. And if you could follow up with an email regarding the economics, that would be very helpful for the committee. So thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll lay that out clearly for you. Thank you.